Hello, dear viewers. This is Jason, your favorite storyteller, and I'm back to bring you today's story that will make you go sorry what. I hope you're somewhere cozy because we're diving right in. Natalie checked herself in the mirror. Classy beige blouse and tailored slacks, she needed to look businesslike. They probably wouldn't be able to help her, but she had to try. She had already confirmed that Spears Agency was the only private investigation service within a 50 miles radius. She was about to put her mobile phone in her handbag, but hesitated. Better not, just in case. As she drove into town, her mind wandered to sex, as it usually did when she was alone. Glen was a good man, wealthy, handsome and a fairly good lover. But he was a bit prim and proper. Sometimes she wished he would just ravage her, or do something out of the ordinary disgusting even. He did sometimes make love in different positions and could be quite inventive. But there were many occasions when Natalie did not want to make love, times when she just wanted to get ducked. And recently she found herself thinking about it more frequently. Despite the difficulties, she was definitely on the lookout for a bit on the side, a bit of rough to be truthful. But she had to be careful as Glen was extremely jealous. She couldn't be absolutely certain, but she thought he was keeping an eye on her. She worked on the principle that he could at least track her car, possibly her phone too. That kind of technology was part of his job. Sorry madam, but we cannot give you that information. But I'm not asking you to spy on anyone. I just need to know if someone's spying on me. I'm happy to pay. That's precisely the kind of thing we cannot tell you. If you want us to spy on someone as you put it, we'll be happy to take your money. She regarded the two men. The older one, obviously the boss, must have been late 40s. He didn't look particularly seedy, but she guessed that expectation came from watching too many movies. The younger was probably mid to late 20s, and very handsome. Very well, she said, rising. Sorry we couldn't be of help. I'll see you out, said the young man. At the door, he muttered. Starbucks, 30 minutes. She had just started her lat when he came in. Hello again, Mrs. Marsden, I'm Day. They shook hands. We'll have to make this quick. Go ahead, and please call me Natalie. I'm not working this weekend. Is there a time when your husband is out of the house? Yes, every Saturday, he plays golf all morning. Well, I could come to yours and check if any surveillance has been installed. We have a device that detects everything your house and your car. But I'll be sneaking it out of Spears, so I'll have to charge you a little. Excellent. Do you know Beech Tree Lane? Yes. Well, ours is the last house on the left. It's quite far out and rather isolated. But we have a door cam for security, so it will be difficult to approach. He always checks that when he gets back, and the camera can see right down the drive. He'll ask me who called. How about I take my car and follow you till we're close to your house? Then I can leave it in the lane, get in your car and duck down till we get there. That would work. We have an integral garage. Is there any chance there's surveillance in there? I don't think so. Do you have a device that recognizes your car number plates and automatically opens the garage door? No, Glen did look into that, but at the moment we have one of those remote control things in each car. Then we'll be okay, said Day. Good, I'll make it worth your while. Natalie drove to the mall early Saturday morning and did some unnecessary shopping. They met up and the plan worked better than expected. As the up and over door rose, they spoke from under a blanket on the back seat. Stop halfway in, right under the door. They did. It made a couple of attempts to close, sensed the obstacle, and gave up. The garage was next to the front door, so they slipped round the other side of the house, and Natalie let him in through the back. Her luck was running. Glen's BMW was in the garage. He and his friend take it in turns to drive, so one of them can drink after the game. Today it must be Jeff's turn. Do you know what the 19th hole is? I thought there were only 18, but he's always talking about it. He's referring to the golf club bar. Day's device soon detected a forward-facing camera in the BMW, and a GPS tracker in both cars. If he's checking on you, there's sure to be a locator on your phone as well. Just as well I never took it to your office then. Next he confirmed the door cam was a standard model. Then he went right through the house, checking every room. They ended up in the master bedroom. Absolutely nothing, he said. I guarantee it. So, if we were both to take our clothes off right now, my husband would never know. Correct, he wouldn't have a clue. Prove it, she said and quickly stripped. They faced each other, and Natalie sat on the end of the bed and squeezed his hardening clock. And if I licked and sucked this until it got hard, he'd be none the wiser. He'd only know if you told him. She did just that, and soon he began to moan. When she was satisfied with her efforts, she let go and lay back on the bed, where she gripped behind her knees and pulled them up to her shoulders. Well, as long as you're certain I did say I'd make it worth your while. Their first time only took 10 minutes, and she insisted he come in her mouth. He soon recovered and started their second session going down on her. He was very good at oral, and she came as soon as his tongue found its way into her back hole. When he finished 30 minutes later, she'd had 3 more. Under the circumstances, use of the detection device will be free of charge. I should think so too, you cheeky bugger. But if I can have another session like that, I'll give you some useful information before I leave. Agreed, I want a lot more of that tongue and clock. Imagine you asked a private investigator, like me, to carry out surveillance on your husband. Well, if he was already a client of ours, we'd have to refuse the job and recommend an alternative agent. Natalie, not the sharpest knife in the drawer, thought for a moment. Then the penny dropped. Would you accept a job from me, please? I want you to set up surveillance on my husband. Certainly, madam. Come to our office next week and we'll arrange things. She sighed with relief. The only check Glen was making was the locators on the cars in her phone. They left via the other side of the house. It was easy enough to walk through some shrubs and hop over the fence into the lane. Driving back into town, he tuned into classic radio and grinned as he sung along with When Will I See You Again. That weekend Natalie was buzzing, but made sure Glen got no more and no less than his usual quota of sex. There was no need to give him any clues. If he was tracking her car and phone, she couldn't continually drive into town. So, as agreed, she waited till Wednesday before meeting Des in Starbucks. She knew she didn't dare risk taking him back to the house so soon, it would be pushing her luck. But there must be some place nearby where they could park up and duck in the back of the car. Bad news, he said. The boss found out I borrowed that detection device. He worked it out straight away who I'd helped. That's what he's good at after all. I have to stop seeing you or I'll lose my job. It was late morning a week later and Natalie was driving Glen's BMW. She should have been in her Ford Focus, but the insurance had run out again. Glen had called her a scatterbrain, and he probably had a point. She had received a reminder after all. But secretly she loved the Beamer. It looked like a conventional X5, but Glen was very security conscious as he occasionally carried sensitive papers. She thought it was paranoia, but he claimed there were industrial spies everywhere. This car had bespoke locks which he designed himself. It also sported unbreakable toughened windows. He always boasted the Prime Minister should have one. Nobody was going to break into Glen's pride and joy. Natalie cared for none of that. It was comfortable and she liked the color. She was daydreaming about Des and wondering if there was a way they could get together again. She snapped out of her reverie. There was a nasty accident up ahead. 2 cars had collided on her side of the road. It was a mess and there was an ambulance the far side of them, with its doors open. Now the flashing lights of a police car were coming up fast behind her. She wasn't sure she was supposed to pull over. An approaching truck was far enough away, so she put her foot down. The BMW sprung forward and pushed her back into the seat. There was a bump as she swerved round the 3 vehicles. The police siren gave her a brief yelp as it pulled in, and the oncoming truck flashed its lights in irritation. Then she was clear. But it turned out, not free and clear. She could feel a disturbing vibration. A large garage was coming into view, so she pulled in. Before Natalie got out of the car, she checked her makeup in the mirror and undid the top button of her dress. The girl on reception paid no attention, but the guy who came to look at the BMW did. They went outside. "Look," he said, "you've got a flat." She frowned. "It's your front driver's side tire." He pointed and turned to stare at her cleavage again. That was far from flat. "Oh no, can you fix it?" He squatted by the wheel and Natalie stood next to him. It was a very hot day and her dress was short. She got as close as she could. A slight breeze caused it to billow out as he looked up at her. Good, she didn't want to be here all day. Her thong was small and white, and she hoped he got a good eyeful. It might motivate him to give her a hand. Something got wedged in there. His grin threatened to touch his ears. "Really?" "Yes, look." She couldn't miss this opportunity and squatted next to him, knees apart. "It's a piece of metal, looks like part of a radiator grill." "Oh, I must have picked it up when I passed the accident." "Would that be the loud crash we heard?" "Yes, it's not far back down the A3. He had a last look between Natalie's damp thighs as she wobbled. Then he stood and offered his hand to help her up. She smiled and did a little curtsy. "Oh sheep, I've got your hand dirty now." He pulled his t-shirt out of his jeans and wiped the oil stain on her palm. "Sorry, I think I've made it worse. I'll show you where the bathroom is so you can clean up properly." "Now where have I heard that before?" They laughed. Of course, she didn't know how to change a wheel, and the damaged tire was beyond repair. Natalie washed her hands and was offered a coffee and a seat while he put a new tire on. But she took the drink into the workshop and watched him. The temperature was approaching its highest point, and his t-shirt was soaking around the armpits and down his back. As if her thong was not wet enough already, it now formed a wedgie and crept right up inside her. Every ripple of his muscles increased her excitement. He finished the job all too soon, and she paid the receptionist with her gold card. When she went outside, she saw him sitting just inside the open workshop doors. She went up to him and asked if it was okay if she gave him a tip. He was sitting in the shade, trying to catch some of the breeze. "You don't need to, but it would come in handy." He gestured to his sandwiches. "I can't afford a proper lunch, I'm only part-time here." "What's in your sandwiches?" "Cheese and pickle." "How about you come and sit in the Beamer with me? It's got air conditioning. We'd be more comfortable while I find my purse. And my mouth is watering, perhaps you'll let me have a little nibble." He jumped up and they got in the car. She drove it down the side of the building and parked in the shade. She didn't bother with his sandwiches after all. Once she unzipped him and got his deck out, she forgot all about them and got a mouthful of something else. When she got home, she told Glen about the accident, so he wouldn't query the credit card payment. But she kept quiet about the oral tip. A week later, Natalie was feeling ornier than ever. His name was Carter, he was 18, and he would only be around for the summer. In September he was off to university. He had the most magnificent deck she'd ever seen. It had been exciting but not very fulfilling. What she really needed was that monster inside her. She had Carter's phone number but was struggling to come up with a plan to see him again. He didn't even have a car. "I have to go away for a week," Glen announced. "They're holding a major expo in Tokyo." "Why Japan?" "Because I own an electronics company, Natalie. I need to keep up with the latest developments, and Japan is where all the new technology will be on display." "Oh, okay, when are you leaving?" "I'll be off Wednesday morning and should be back the following Monday night or Tuesday, depending on which flight I catch. And I don't want you gallivanting off every day. You must stay here." "That's ridiculous. I'm not sitting in the house for a week. It'll feel like a prison." Glen put down his coffee and glared at her. "Recently, you've been into town more than is necessary. You can go shopping once, we have plenty of food in, so you don't need even that. And you can go up to the golf club for one evening socializing, no more." "Why are you being so mean?" "I don't trust you, Natalie. I saw you flirting with the young man who came to clean the swimming pool. I've instructed the company to send an older man next time or a woman if they have a female cleaner. I only gave him a glass of lemonade, that's not flirting." "Maybe that's all you actually gave him, but you were braless and stood chatting to him for 6 minutes. 6 minutes he's been timing me. I always go braless in the summer. We're so far out of town here nobody ever sees. So you fired him just because I spoke to him." "I'm just being careful, I know what you're like. Yet I'm allowed up to your stuffy old golf club while you're away. I'm a founder member of that club and they all know me." "They all know you're a hard custard, you mean, they're scared of you. You'd rip the face of any man who made a pass at me, and not just his face. They will let me know if you attend more than once," Glen continued. "And they'll be on the lookout for any new member who doesn't know who I am, and makes an inappropriate move on you." "You being paranoid. What am I supposed to do with myself for a week?" "You can tidy up all the food cupboards, they're sticky. And the 2 lawns will need a good mowing. Do the front one first." "I thought we paid someone to come and do that." "We did. But I caught him watching you sunbathing topless last time he was here." "That was an accident. He finished the back lawn when I went out. I had no idea he'd come back for his shirt." "I'm not convinced. Anyway, last week I told him to stay away for a fortnight just in case. So you can do it." Natalie gave an inward groan. She'd been working on Jason who did the lawns. It had given her an extra tingle when he'd stared at her nips. The trouble was Glen did not work regular hours and watched her like a hawk. Jason was as frightened of him as everyone else. She smiled at the memory of the secret blue job she'd given him in the garage last month. That had been the first time in years she'd swallowed such a massive load, but then he was only 20. Sucking Glen off was fun, but he'd had a vasectomy after their daughter Cheryl had got married and flown the coop to Canada. Now he only managed half the volume. Still, Glen being away for nearly a week should provide an opportunity for her and Carter. She needed to afford this far out of town, so she'd better make the most of her one trip. If only she thought to buy a burner phone. Not only could he track her normal one, but he had a habit of making video calls at random times, day and night checking on her. But there was a way around the problem. Carter was only spinning out the time this summer. She only had to smuggle him in here once and he could stay. And the adventure with Day had shown her exactly how to do it. Carter was part-time, and she could pay him for a few lost hours if it came to that. She had a hidden stash of cash. The garage down the road was also a filling station, so Glen wouldn't be suspicious if he tracked her stopping for fuel. He was busy through the weekend, preparing for his trip, so she was bursting for sex by Sunday night. But he was exhausted and fell asleep before she could get to work on him. Monday night he claimed it was too hot for lovemaking. And Tuesday afternoon he remarked you would have to get up very early on Wednesday. Next thing she knew he was off in a spare bedroom, so I won't disturb you when I get up. But I won't disturbing. Masturbation only does half the job. After the usual arrived safely and checked into hotel messages, Natalie's phone went quiet for a while. The BMW was in the garage. Glen always took taxis to and from the airport. He tended to drink on long flights. She knew what to expect and put on a t-shirt and jeans. This time she even wore a bra. She dragged the lawnmower out and did half the front lawn, then stopped. Sure enough, Glen was video calling her. She proudly held the phone up for a selfie showing him her progress with the mower. "I'll do the back lawn tomorrow," she said. "So, show me some of Tokyo." He did his own selfie, and she saw the Japanese skyline behind him through the window. "It looks fantastic." "It's damn hot, I can tell you that," he said. "I bet it's even hotter here. This morning's report says we're having the hottest summer since 2016. "Good." After swapping weather news they hung up. "Good, he really is out of the country." Natalie waited till Thursday morning before taking the BMW to the filling station, though it hardly needed any fuel. Both lawns were done. The forecast was predicting this would be the hottest day of the year so far. She was braless again and wearing a white pleated skirt. When she went in to pay for the petrol, she left her mobile phone in the car. At the counter she casually asked the guy if Carter was in today. "Nah, don't know when his next shift is. He doesn't come in every day." He ogled her melons. That was okay, he was supposed to. "May I use your phone a moment? I need to ask him if he can mow our lawns. I'll pay for the call." "Sure. But could you move your Beamer off the pumps first?" She reparked and went back in. "Hi Carter, can you come out to the house and finish off that job you started?" "You're ringing from the garage." "Yes." "What about your old man?" "No, that's fine. I'll pick you up from the shopping mall." "He's away." The clerk was now speaking to another customer. "Yes, he's away till next week," she said quietly. "Meet me at Starbucks in an hour. Pack some clothes for as many days as you can stay, till Sunday night if you're strong enough. And don't plan on going out much." "I'll be there." So far so good. If Glen was still able to track her from Japan, the phone and car had merely stopped for petrol. Now they were going to the shopping mall, for their one permitted trip. Okay, he was an expert in electronics and was always suspicious of her. But now she was sure there were no cameras on the property, except the front door. If Day's machine had missed anything he'd have known about her ducking him on the marital bed. And he'd have murdered her by now, and him not gone off halfway around the world and left her to it. And whatever else he could discern from afar, he couldn't possibly know her tire-fitting stud was about to upgrade from his blowjob. A four-night duckfest was looming, and Carter's tongue invasion had told her he wanted her arse. Well, he could have it as many times as he could get it up. Natalie paid a quick visit to a lingerie shop and bought 2 pairs of hold-up stockings. Carter might appreciate a bit of variety, and Glen might like them later. She also got some lube. Keeping her mobile in her handbag, she went to Starbucks, another assignation overlap. Carter was already waiting. Good, he was looking forward to this as much as she was. "I've thrown some clothes in a bag," he said. "I also brought a 6-pack of beer." "Fine, but you probably won't need the clothes. I'm going to get everything. Everything I've ever given my husband, and more as many times as you can manage. He's in Japan and isn't coming back until early next week." "Great. But I'll need to use your shower before we get down to business. I helped a maid carry a chest of drawers up 2 flights of stairs just before you called. I'm really sweaty, in fact I stink." "Not going to happen, young man. I'll lick that sweat off you. No showering allowed until I've had at least 3 offs." "Wow. I'm not going to argue. I'm still sweating now. I should have got an iced coffee." "Hold your arms up a moment," she instructed. "My turn to say wow, your t-shirt is almost black around the armpits. I want to suck up everything you've got that's covered in curly hair." "What, even my arse?" "Yes, if you like." She leaned back and crossed her legs, giving him a flash. "You've got no knickers on." "It's the hottest day of the year, what's a girl to do?" "Can we leave soon?" he said. "Yes, we can go now. But I want you to hunker down in the back all the way there. Don't sit up until we're right inside the garage." "Do I have to stay down all the way?" "Yes. Plenty of people will recognize my husband's car on the way to Beach Tree Lane. And when we get there, our front door camera gets a clear image of the car approaching the garage. They arrived at the double-width door and she pressed the remote. It opened and she drove in. The fun would begin soon. Carter scrambled over into the front seat while the car was still moving. He kissed her roughly as it stopped and lifted her shirt. "I've come in your mouth at the garage and seen your count in Starbucks," he said, stating the obvious. "But I still haven't seen your tits properly, which is a bit weird." Natalie agreed this was not the usual sequence, pulled the shirt off and dropped it on the back seat. She knew this was ridiculous, they should go in the house. But the BMW air conditioning was still running. She turned off the engine and there was an ominous click, the unmistakable sound of the doors locking. "What was that?" asked Carter. "It sounded like the door locks." "What did you lock them for?" "I didn't." Natalie tried the ignition, but it was dead. No AC, no horn, she couldn't even open the garage door, not that there'd be any passers-by. "Glen," she said. "Oh, sheep." The temperature started to rise. Glen stopped fiddling with his phone and put it back in his pocket. He turned his attention to the seminar. They were doing this in English and he was learning a lot. The news on his laptop informed him England's hottest day of the year would be followed by an even hotter one. In the days that followed he explored the expo, but didn't bother with any more video calls, they were hardly necessary now. But he did send a couple of messages to Natalie every day that was necessary. He never got a reply. The following Monday he decided he would stay the extra night after all. There were some deals going down in the bar, so he should make the most of this trip. He was improving his network of contacts every day. And it wasn't as if anything interesting was happening in England apart from the heat wave. In his room, Glen checked his phone one last time and was satisfied all was in order. He had one last look at the movies. The private investigator had been a bit of a surprise. Natalie was not as stupid as he thought. He pinpointed the forward-facing camera, which had recorded him doing so, but not the one next to it. That was aimed at the Beamer interior. Presumably Natalie had got him to check the house, so there was no way of knowing how long he'd stayed. If she paid for his services by opening her legs, so be it. And Glen couldn't care less when and how he got away. The blue job at the garage had been the clincher. And she probably used the same trick to get the guy into the garage. Natalie must have promised him everything as he seemed to bring an overnight bag with him. But apart from a feel of her tits, the blue job was all he ever got. He sent her a last text from Japan, not that she'd be reading it. "I'm going to bed now. Are you okay? I haven't heard from you for a couple of days. See you tomorrow night." He flew back on Tuesday morning. His flight arrived at Heathrow at 4:30 p.m. He toyed with the idea of having a meal at the airport. But no, he was supposed to be concerned about losing contact with his wife. He tried to call a few times, and then got a taxi. It was almost dark when he was dropped off on his driveway. He would have been surprised if there had been any smell when he let himself into the garage. And there was nothing, of course, not even when he opened the BMW doors. To do that he needed to use his phone to override the car's locking system. Their desiccated bodies were starting to shrink, and the wrinkles reminded him of mummies. They both had all their clothes on. That had been more comfortable on the car seats. Natalie was sprawled over the back seat and her lover was in the front. He noted the bag from the lingerie shop. It didn't quite gel with her lack of underwear. He left her key in the ignition and, using his own, locked the car again. He went back into the house and used his phone. This time it was for an actual call. "Hello? Police, please." And that's a wrap, folks. You know the drill. Let me know what you think about today's story in the comment section down below, and I'll see you in the next one.